pretend we're in circles and can all see each other and you're not all just looking at me, because this model is kind of not the model that works so well. This is the old sage on the stage, expert up front. I do know a lot because I love this field, and I will share what I can in 45 minutes, but so do you. You know a lot, and I don't want you to leave here thinking, you're not me, I can't do what she does, because you can do what you are called to do, okay? That's really important. And I hope that I leave you with some ideas that you could take home, that you could make what you do even richer. But I hate this physical stuff. I just need to say that out loud. Okay. Welcome back. So we are talking about Christian formation. We're talking about what I would say, how many of you grew up in the world where we talk about Christian education? Lots of us, right? How many of you went to schools where they taught religious education? How many of you have, sort of thought, what does this thing formation mean? Right? It's long and big and confusing. Just to be really quick, I look at Christian formation as a helpful umbrella that is bigger than all of those subcategories that all are important. The reason I think Christian formation language is catching on and has become our preferred description for what we do as people who pass on faith, who share our faith in the world, is that it does involve components that are formal and traditional, like Christian education, that may actually be in a classroom, or it may be a study group, it may be a Lenten series, it may be an adult forum. It also includes a lot of the informal learning about faith that happens in the everyday. The things that are so important in the still small spaces of our lives, where the still small voice of God breaks through. So Christian formation is a bigger category that collects all of those opportunities and structures in which and inside of which we are becoming more aware of the love of God, inside of which we are helping others discover that they are loved and they are forgiven. That's the core message of the gospel. So, in Christian formation in the Episcopal Church, we have a long history, and some of these symbols on this slide represent that history that I don't have time to walk you through, but there's one there about the catechumenate. The little, sort of looks like a Celtic knot, is an early symbol for what used to be NACID, the National Association of Episcopal Christian Education Directors, now called FORMA. The Call to Teach and Learn book at the bottom is a really important piece of work that was done in the Episcopal Church, written by a person called John Westerhoff, that wrote out what we were coming to believe in the early 90s about Christian formation and human development at that intersection. The Children's Charter was passed by General Convention as a statement of our commitment to love and serve children, both in terms of their faith development and in terms of justice issues, access to healthcare, access to education, safety, all of that. And then the 5 marks of mission isn't up in the corner because that has become a language we have finally adopted 20 years plus later from the wider church, the Anglican Church, to understand that baptism calls us to respond in many, many ways. Among them, the sharing and passing on of faith, the teaching of faith. But this charter for the lifelong Christian formation that we now have as a foundational document in the Episcopal Church was voted on at General Convention in 2009 and adopted unanimously. It's a document I hope you will all look for. You can go online and just type in Charter for Lifelong Christian Formation and you'll find it. It's quite a lot of text, but if you read the text, it's very clear that Christian formation is more than classes. Christian formation is a worldview. It's a perspective. It's being committed as people on the way with Jesus to change the world, really, to recognize the radical nature of what we're about. And it's really important for us to know that it's there as a tool for ministry in our local settings. So the definition of Christian formation that it gives us, it says lifelong Christian faith formation in the Episcopal Church is lifelong growth in the knowledge, service, and love of God as followers of Christ, and is informed by scripture, tradition, and reason. So that sounds like the world we come from, and we know that's not surprising. What do we mean by lifelong? For me, we mean birth to grave, duh, right? But we also mean baptism to resurrection. We mean that life is Lent, right? Lent begins with Jesus being baptized and then cast out into the wilderness, and it ends with his death and his resurrection. It means that we are called as people on the way to have our sights set on the horizon, to know that where we are bound is the reign of God. Where we are going is the promised place where we will live forever with God. That we have a journey, the destination is ultimate, and it matters. And we are being invited and called and nurtured and urged that direction by a loving God all the time. So the direction is God's. Our response is our free will. That's the lifelong peace. Now, I think there's a lot of good reasons just in kind of the history of the church and in our scriptures from the Deuteronomical texts like the Shema, which commands the people of God to teach their faith to their children, to pass it on, all the way through the New Testament, of course, to talk about the Great Commission and the idea of making disciples to the ends of the earth. We know we're supposed to do this good stuff, right? But somehow, even knowing that has made it difficult to do for many of us. And there's all sorts of reasons sociologically and developmentally why in some denominations, particularly maybe the Episcopal Church, we're especially shy about doing it. You know, we're reluctant to talk about Jesus. We don't know our Bible as well as we should. So how do we do this work? So we hope somebody else knows it better and does it better. And that's one of the reasons why parents bring their kids to church and hope church will do it for us. It's why we long for something that's deeper, but we don't necessarily know why. If those reasons are part of your ecology of life and you believe and you wish you could talk about it more easily, don't feel guilty. Just know that you're not alone and know that there are ways for us to be awakened to that confidence that I think are really important. But I also want to put that challenge, the call to lifelong faith formation, into a wider set context. The work of Stephen Prothero, which many of you may know, a professor in the Boston world, he wrote a book called Religious Literacy some years ago, 2007. And what he is very concerned about is the decline in religious literacy in this country and its impact on our democracy. That because people are religious, we're still one of the probably the most religious country in the world, with the exception of countries where they have a mandated religious tradition. The free will, the protections we have in the First Amendment are extraordinary. So people say they're religious, even though we have lots of statistics of decline. People are still very religious generally in this country. But the trouble is you scratch below the surface, and that sense of religiosity is not well rooted for many, many people. Stephen Prothero describes religious literacy as the ability to understand and use the religious vocabulary, symbols, images, beliefs, practices, scriptures, heroes, themes, and stories that are used in American public life. What he's arguing is that if we know our story as people who are religious, we will contribute constructively to the public good. When we don't know our story, or we think we know it and we know it superficially, we see what I think are the fruits of a very polarizing experience. We have people who make judgments about the other in the name of their religious tradition. And we see that across the spectrum right now. Christian spectrum as well as Christian Muslim. We have huge tensions because people have a sense of the other, but they don't know as much about the other, and they actually don't know as much about their own story. So one of my arguments for why we need to be doing more in Christian formation and be braver about it is we would be better citizens of this country if we were able to witness through our lived experience to the love of God as we understand it. What's scary in his findings is that 10% of American teenagers were able to name all 5 world religions. I think that's pretty poor. European kids do much better, and they're much less church than our kids. What are the 5 major world religions?
Zoroastrianism,
Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism. Well done. You're better than 10% of American teenagers. But what's really frightening is of those American teenagers, 15% could not name any. They could even say Christianity. Now, why didn't they say Christianity? Because they said things like Baptist or Methodist. I don't know how many said Episcopal. But they don't know the difference between a denomination and a religion. They don't know the difference between a religion and a sect. So you start there, and you realize that we really do have a lot of work to do. Where he goes, which I think is really telling, is he says that if we have these levels of religious illiteracy, it makes it very, very difficult for Americans to make sense of a world in which people kill and make peace in the name of Christ or Allah. So when we don't do our foundational work of formation locally, we are contributing, I would argue, to a global reality, which is a very vulnerable and very dangerous truth, that people don't know what others believe. And in not knowing, we create some very powerful mistakes. This country is amazing, and we have such a gift to give the world as leaders in international relations. But if our religiosity, as Stephen Prothero understands it, is as complex and as superficial as it may be, then we have a lot more work to do. Closer to home, how many of you know Willow Creek Community Church? Raise your hands. Okay, so about a third of you. Willow Creek is one of the largest, may still be the largest, mega church, and certainly one of the most talked about in the U.S. It's outside Chicago, was founded by a pastor called Bill Hybels. And long story short, Bill Hybels was the founding pastor, thriving church. I've been to the campus. It is like going to a community college. There are buildings and there are huge parking lots all the way around it. There are vans from the perimeter of the parking lot to make sure you don't have to walk too far from wherever you have to park. There's programming for every age. There's a social outreach center. There are church chapels, and there's a huge church. There's of course, a barista and coffee bar in the lobby. There's a bookstore. You walk in, and immediately there's a welcome center to tell you where to go, and well hosted. There's a place to go and get immediate translation equipment for simultaneous translation to 6 languages. There are resources for people with disabilities. There are home churches. There are follow-up groups for people with illness. There are chronic illness. I mean, it's all there, right? Bill was the founding pastor. It was thriving. He retired. They hired a new pastor. Typical story of a smaller church, too. It's very hard to step into those shoes. The relationship with the second pastor did not go so well. That pastor was asked to resign, and Bill was rehired. And Bill came back with new eyes, having been there, built it, seen it, left, and returned. And what Bill noticed was that while the church, by all measures, was thriving, he realized that they had as many people coming in the front door as they had slipping out of the back door. That they should be growing at much larger rates, higher rates, because of the new visitors, the new attendees, than they were. They were losing good people who were affiliated with that church over time. What did he learn? He called in a social scientist, a real bona fide social scientist, who happened to be Episcopalian, which is kind of fun. And they began something called the Reveal Study. They surveyed all of their membership. They interviewed a huge percentage of their membership. They surveyed all of their staff. And they came up with scientifically verifiable, rigorous data to say some really important things. And that study, or that instrument, was then released for use across all denominations. The Episcopal Church chose to participate also. So now there's aggregated data and disaggregated data for all these different denominations, and it all says the same thing. There is no proven relationship with how active you are in church and how spiritually alive you feel. In other words, the more you do, there is no guarantee you will grow spiritually. In fact, a lot of people who are more active describe feeling very spiritually stalled. That being busy, which has to happen in a lot of our small churches, where we call on the same warm bodies to do a lot of the work, in fact may have a reverse impact on the relationship of their soul to God. What they found was that 1 in 4 adults who participated in the study actually could articulate that they were spiritually stalled. They were flatlining when it came to what they believed and their connection with God and any sense of joy or meaning or purpose making that was going on there. That's a lot, a quarter of the people. He found that leadership matters. There's so much more data to support this, but the leadership matters means we can't just put a warm body in charge of something because we need it to get done. We have to use a process of discernment. Does the person's gift, does the person's available time, does the readiness of their soul and their spirit incline them to do the work that we're asking them to do? If it does, their leadership will inspire other people because they will be living with integrity the incarnation that is their witness. So if you lead a committee and you love doing it, people want to be on your committee. If you lead a committee and you hate doing it and it's killing you, people will not want to be on your committee. Forget forming faith, okay? And finally, this is also very important. Willow Creek is built on the Bible. They call themselves a Bible-based church. Everything they do is Bible-based. They have small groups. They have preaching that is clearly scripturally based. Lots and lots and lots of Bible for people in all ages, all forms, vacation Bible schools, mission trips, all of it. Bible, Bible, Bible. But their people and our people, once they were surveyed, said they want to know Scripture better. They want to understand and have a relationship with Scripture, and that they lacked confidence in that area. What Bill interpreted accurately was that while they used the Bible, they taught people the Bible. They were not creating an opportunity for people to engage with sacred texts. They were not giving people a chance to say, what does this say to me? How is my story really connecting and informed by this story? So we can learn from this, that people want a closer relationship with God that is alive, or Jesus, whatever they call their sacred connection, and they want to know more about Bible. The problem is, we are losing out to places and people who are constantly giving people more promise than we are. We know that. We have this incredible message to give to people. The back of your current Old Spice deodorant. Anyone looked at the back of an Old Spice deodorant container lately? Contains odor-fighting atomic robots that shoot lasers at your stench monsters and replaces them with fresh, clean, masculine scent bottles. When does your bulletin sound like that? Anything ever? When does your newsletter sound like that? I want to put that in my armpits. Okay? I don't want to go to 14 meetings and do 16 things and sign up for this with the same enthusiasm in many of the churches that I spend my time in. What are we doing wrong? We know we have something that's life-giving, but we're not giving them stench monsters. Okay. Another world that I pay attention to is the online gaming world. This is a picture of a kid who's playing an online game. If you've ever played an online game that's really intense and you're about to have what they would call an epic win, you're about to get it, you're about to power up, you're about to do something really amazing, that's the look you get in your face, okay? A woman called Jane McGonigal, PhD scientist, researcher, Palo Alto, California, smarty pants, she wrote a book called Reality is Broken. And it's a book that turns on its head all of the myths we have about online gamers, that they're all antisocial, that they're all in the basement, that they're all greasy-haired, that they all have pimples, that they're mostly boys, that they're going to go kill people, they're all the Unabomber, blah, 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 right? We have to pay attention. There are some pastoral concerns about some people whose lives become isolated. We're not diminishing them. But the majority of people who play online games look and sound and feel a whole lot like us. There are a whole lot of middle and older age women that play online games. There's a whole lot of people globally that play online gaming. What Jane figured out is that young people who play online games seriously, are spending more than 10,000 hours in their lives between about the age of sort of when they start playing, say 7, 8, 9, and finishing high school. More than 10,000 hours. Now, why does that matter? There's a theory that's been contested, but it's pretty convincing, that if you spend more than 10,000 hours doing something, you become a virtuoso at it. So there's a whole population, we're talking millions of young adults around the world and in this country, millions, who are virtuoso gamers. And what Jane has figured out is that they are learning skills and aptitudes that actually can be transferred into real life, real time. They are learning, and she's got great descriptions of these things. Blissful productivity. You're never unemployed in an online game. There's always something else to do. If you failed at this effort, you get another chance. You come around the other side. You never sit around and twiddle your thumbs. There's always a challenge. It's always just above your current level of capacity. Social fabric. We think they're antisocial people? Not at all. People who play online games that much start to trust the people that they play against. They start to look for players that have challenged them, and they ask, will you be my friend online? Will your avatar play with my avatar, and can we go do something together that I can't do alone? They build a social fabric that now she has learned can be sturdy enough to come into real time. They have this urgent optimism because it's always possible. That look on that kid's face, it can be. And they are living in a world that has epic meaning. They think that what they're doing has a direction. They have a horizon. They are going somewhere. Now, there are violent online games. Don't mishear me. I'm not advocating for every game that's out there. But what she's discovered is that the tools that people use are transferable. What I love is that she says, online gamers who are virtuoso online gamers have become super empowered, hopeful individuals. Are we? What would a super empowered, hopeful Christian look like? How about the fruits of the Spirit? How do we know one when we see one? Why are we not out there with this awesome, incredible truth that we have to share, inspiring people in the same way that online gaming seems to be attracting their attention? We have, I will argue until I can no longer argue, the most significant epic adventure that will ever be available to humankind. But it is muted, obfuscated, blurred, silenced by the noises in our world and the other options that people have. So in the midst of the sparkles of everyday life and the demands of everyday life, it's hard to hear and hard to see that Christ has died, Christ is risen, and Christ will come again. That is our horizon. We could build an amazing online game in real time that promises that for people. And some people are. J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter, 800 million books at least have been sold worldwide in 67 different languages. $20 billion worth of merchandise has been sold between movies and books and stuff. She's the first author to be a billionaire in human history. These books are the books that are providing a narrative for generations of young people now that are shaping their understanding of good and evil, that are shaping what it means to be a person who can make a difference in the world. And there could be worse. These are not bad books to be shaping people's identity structures, but they're not the gospel. Now, she is, J.K. Rowling, a Christian. There's a whole lot of Christian symbolism in her series. She was baptized at 13. When do you get into Hogwarts? At 13. There's a whole lot of things like that all the way through the book. But what I want you to know is that there's this generation of young people who read these books, watched the movies, and said, this is real. This is how I want to live.
It's not over for us today.
The excitement is in the air.
Hey. I'm into where the boss want to be down here.
What was that? That was the Quidditch World Cup, okay? Quidditch is a make-believe game in a book that J.K. Rowling made up. And she wasn't even a jock, okay? She borrowed from a bunch of different traditions of sport. She made up this game. The kids who read the book said, this is so awesome, we want to play it. It's now an NCAA sport. There's a manual that's over 200 pages long on how to play the game. There are scholarships at colleges in Quidditch. It all began at Middlebury. Middlebury had the first 2 scholarships. This has become real. Their sense of what they know about the story has made reality possible. How is our sense about the gospel making and changing people's everyday lives? And before we say, okay, well, let's find a playing game and it's really cool, they get that part of the gospel in Harry Potter, small g, is to make a difference in the world, to serve justice. So there are many different networks, among them the Harry Potter Alliance, which have mobilized young people and people now of all ages around the common convictions of Harry Potter to change the world. So, the Harry Potter Alliance wants you. We are an army of fans, activists, nerd fighters, teenagers, wizards, and muggles, dedicated to fighting for social justice and the greatest weapon we have, love. Join us. That sounds like invitation, I want to join. And it sounds a whole lot like the gospel, actually, our gospel. They were the first nonprofit to get airplanes on the ground in Haiti after the earthquake, with the exception of, I think, one Red Cross plane. They got 5 planes packed with emergency supplies and on the ground in Haiti before any other organization worldwide mobilized. That's how effective this group of young adults is, because they're connected through social media and they believe they can change the world. We should be that effective. That's how we know Christian formation works, because by it, we see the world is new. What I would argue is that lifelong formation is all about the direction, but that where we have fallen short is what I would call life-wide formation. That we need to be paying more attention historically than we have, more attention than we have historically, to the still small voice of God at work right now, right here, where we are. Let our peripheral vision lead us. This matters. I need to remember whose I am and where I'm going. But what I really need to know how to do is be a Christian in the world who is listening for God at work. At the grocery store, when you're in that line and you ran in to get one thing and you're in a hurry and you picked the wrong line and you're incredibly frustrated, what is the witness of your body in that moment? What are you thinking when you go to work in the morning? How do you listen to people at work whose lives are fragile or broken? How do they know that you love them and care for them in appropriate professional ways? How do they know that as a Christian, you have an enduring hope that is different than just, it's going to get better and a nice, some kind of get well card? How do we know when we make choices in our marriages, in our relationships, that God is at the heart of who we are and how we live? What is it that we can do differently because we do believe that our God is a mighty God, that our God can change anything? Concrete example out of my life, and these are just 2 Facebook posts, 2 screenshots from one long Facebook conversation that just happened last week. And it's referring to something that I was involved in 1992. The young woman who's now in her 30s posted at the top, Dio-Cal Friends, so Diocese of California Friends. At the time, I was the youth coordinator in the Diocese of California. Dio-Cal Friends. Who was at Sex DYE? Who was at the Sex Diocesan Youth Event in 1992? My friend doesn't believe me that it happened at church. Now, when I did what I'm about to tell you I did in 1992, I didn't know that I was being a practical theologian. That's what the academics would call the process I led. I didn't know that I was thinking about life-wide Christian formation. But by the grace of God, I knew enough to notice what was going on around me and to say the church needs to respond to this. So what happened, I was the director of the summer camp. Before that, senior high summer camp, doing lots of things. In the course of a week of camp, I heard and I heard quietly, and then had people confide in me so many stories of confusion and fear at the intersection of human life and sexuality, that I said the church is not serving these kids well. The kids and the counselors were struggling to make sense of what they thought the church taught about sex and what was actually happening in their lives. Everything from a sibling who had just died of AIDS, to a counselor who was a fabulous young man who was living with his girlfriend. I knew that, and I overheard the camper in his cabin after lights out saying, "Hey Jack, do you live with your girlfriend?" And Jack kind of, because he felt like he couldn't say yes because premarital sex and da-da-da-da. And finally he kind of stuttered out, no, they said, "Hey, do you have sex with your girlfriend?" In fact, he finally stuttered out, "We live together." That was his sort of compromised answer to let the kid kind of fill in the gap, right? I realized this isn't okay. We're leaving these young people and their leaders without the depth of understanding about how their faith informs who they are. So I pulled together a group of clergy and lay leaders that I really trusted. 6 of us gathered. I said, I don't know what this is going to be, but we need to work out something that I want the end result to be a youth event for young people where we talk about human sexuality and Christianity together. For 6 months, the group of us met. We told our own stories of being human and being sexual by asking 2 questions. What about our experience has been holy? And what about our experience has been broken? Those stories we shared were more personal and more significant than any story sharing I have ever done. All of us shared something with each other in that group that we had never told anybody else. And none of us, we were all healthy people with had healthy relationships. You know, we were not like the fragile folk. But there were things that we had kept inside us that had to do with sex and belief and struggle and failure and shame that nobody knew. So then we went to the scriptures and we went to our Christian tradition and we said, what is our teaching? What do we believe? That was another several months. Then we said, how do we translate this to young people? And we designed a youth event based around our own experience. We then took the staff through that process and then we ran the event. If you have the time to read this, it is mind-blowing. It's 1992, is how many years ago? These young people, now adults, are talking about this was the event where the church made sense to me. It's because of that event that I'm a priest today. It's because of that event that I was able to love myself when I recognized that I was gay. It's because of that, I wept as I started, I will weep again. I just wept as I read this. That is faith formation. Okay, I'm not marketing myself, I'm just saying we have to listen. We have to catch the moment when it can happen. We all know that people are talking a lot about the nuns, those people who are in larger and larger numbers, perhaps as many as 1 in 5, certainly 30% of young adults are identifying as a nun, a person who's not religiously affiliated. I think that's really good news for us. There's all sorts of reasons why they're doing that, but it means they're being honest. People who may not really know what they believe are not pretending that they know what they believe. They're not pretending that they affiliate with a denomination or a religious tradition. They're saying, I just don't know. A lot of folks in that nun category actually have faith. They just don't know the institution is relevant. What's more concerning, but I think also really important for us, is that there's now a long conversation emerging about the duns. Not just the nuns, but the duns. And these are considered to be unaffiliated believers. These are people who were at the core of religious tradition, mostly Christians, who are done with us because we burned them out. Basically, they are done because they were asked to do so much heavy lifting that they no longer see the value added. They know that they're spiritually stalled in the revealed language. They know that they're not growing in faith. These folks are not going to be easy recruits. But I think they're people we need to listen to. And I'm guessing that every one of you knows somebody from your former congregation or this congregation who is a dun. Make time to go listen to them. Make time to meet with them, not to ask them to come back, not to ask them to pledge, not to make them feel guilty, but to say, will you be my prophet? Talk to me about why you've walked away. Why are you no longer coming to church? The horizon. For some people, they're done, or they're a nun, or they're sitting in the pew, but the horizon is not clear. The promise of resurrection, the hope of salvation, is not something they see well. They want to, but they don't see it. We make a lot of assumptions that everybody knows what the creed means, that everybody knows why we say what we say and why we stand and why we kneel. There's all sorts of ways to make it okay to not know. The Episcopal Church should be really good at this. But we get into our habits, we get into our routines, we do things the way we always do them. And it reinforces this idea that I'm supposed to know. So I don't tell anybody that I don't know, or that I'm not sure. Have a conversation with somebody else in your congregation, and let them tell you about their relationship with God. And listen for the confidence, and listen for the fear. And say, I have it too. But pray together, be together. Some people might see the horizon, but they're caught up in the puddles. It's muddy, it's messy, it's not paved. They're doing it alone. They're wet, they're cold. They want a cup of tea. Right? They want shelter. They want warmth. Or they like the adventure. They don't want other people around. They want the solitude. They want to go on retreat. We do it differently. God is the one beckoning. The journey is there for us to walk. But for us to assume it's a one-size-fits-all, as nice as our churches are and as lovely as our liturgy is just not helpful. The Barna study, as many of you probably know, it talks about why young adults aren't coming or are leaving the church. They found, this is young adults across the U.S., so mostly not Episcopalian in the survey. But what the young adults said is church is boring. It's judgmental. It's overprotective. It's exclusive. It's unfriendly toward doubters. It's antagonistic toward science, and it's shallow. Now, I look at that list, and I think the Episcopal Church could be a rock star with these young adults if they knew about us, right? We are not antagonistic towards science. We are not unfriendly towards doubters if we actually live into the theology that we claim. And I don't think we're shallow. I think our habits can be shallow, but I don't think what we believe is shallow for me. So what can we do differently so that what we know is what people see and hear and touch and see, rather than assuming it's what they hear in the media, in the old language, above the fold on the newspaper. The loudest messages young adults and people of all ages are hearing about church today are not pretty messages. So we know that we have good things to say. That famous quote from Deming, "Your system is perfectly designed to give you the results you're getting." We've got to start doing some things differently, and not stop doing what we do well. What we do well and people love, keep doing it. But the real challenge is, what is it that we're doing that is not life-giving for even the people who are doing it? Be honest. It's better to stop doing something that's not feeding your souls than to keep doing it and pretending. We know some things that work. We know that intergenerational and generational formation need to be married with each other. So in congregations that are fortunate to have more than one generation of membership or participation, have chances somewhere in the course of the year where people come together intergenerationally, besides just Sunday church. Have structured opportunities, picnics, gatherings, movie nights, craft projects, whatever it is that plays the strength of who you are. Times when you spend time together where you have all generations present, because then we will all learn from each other. And then figure out what can you do well that is generationally specific, that is for the particular age group. Most of our churches are too small to do grade-aged programming. And grade-aged programming is a model of schooling that we bought 200 years ago, and it's not working for most people. Most of our kids don't want to be in school the 6th day of the week. Most of our classrooms, when they're in them, just aren't that life-giving. If they're great, keep doing it. But just because we've done it doesn't mean it's the only way to teach. It's the only way to share good news. There are so many other ways. So find ways that are intergenerational and generational. Network. We need to be connected to each other as people besides on Sunday morning. So that does mean venturing into digital media. It does mean being brave about social media. It does mean Facebook groups or Facebook friends, navigating connection with the people who want to be connected in those ways. It doesn't mean everybody has to be, but somebody must be. And it means that you begin to say we are connected because we know we are the body of Christ theologically, but we actually have outward and visible signs of connection. When I'm on a business trip 2,000 miles away, I can still be connected to the life of my parish. I can know who to pray for because there's a way that I'm being given the prayer list virtually, or there's a way that I can post an update about my life. Connection, network. Missional. You know this, I'm not going to spend time on it, but we need to know who we are and where we're going. We need to be able to talk about the horizon and the life-wide perspective that we have. We can't just be doing the work of keeping the building open, as we were saying here last night from Tom. We need to be really, really clear that there's a lot going on in this world of being people of faith, following the way of Jesus, that is so cool that we want, in fact, to be sharing it, that it's shaping our lives. Connected and Blended talks about the fact that Christian formation practices need to have both face-to-face experience and opportunities for us to connect with good content and good opportunities when we are at a park. So what we call virtual or distance learning. So blended means you have some classes that you meet once face-to-face for a nice supper and the kickoff of a class, and then the whole thing in between might be independent reading or reading with a Facebook page where you post a comment or some kind of blog where you post something, or just where you are encouraged to watch a movie and read a book, and then you come back X number of weeks later and you talk about how was that experience. That's a blended model. Personalized. Some people get very nervous when they see that word. They think, oh, everything is so selfish, so individualized. We have too much individualism into the 2015 world. There's a lot of individualism in 2015, but the reality is, we know neurologically, people learn best when they're ready to learn. So if you can flip the judgment, sort of the judgmental piece, and thinking that people who pick and choose what they want might actually be picking what they're ready for, rather than just a sort of selfish, I don't like that, I want this. People do need us to help them find their way to resources and formation opportunities that meet them where they are spiritually. We're not all in the same place. If I surveyed all of you about your level of faith right now and your spirituality, each of you would need something different than I do. And that's a good and holy thing. God knows us and calls us by name. We are uniquely created in God's image. Why would our spiritual journey be any different? So finding ways to personalize formation is really important. I'm going to give you a couple ideas. And formation that works means that the church, the person who is committed to forming faith, thinks about curation. And what curation means, like a museum, a curator is the one responsible for the collection. There is so much good content out in the world, and much of it is free. But someone has to help people find it. Someone has to help people get it. Whether it's a printed resource, a video, a downloadable piece, a great website, someone has to help people find it, because there's also a lot of junk out there. If people just Google God, or if they just Google Bible study, I can almost guarantee the stuff they will get will probably not be theologically what you will hope they will find. So we have to find a way to go to places that are trusted. That's what my center at Virginia Seminary and lots of other places can offer you, is people who already do the curating, and you can just trust us to hand on good ideas. So, Buckminster Fuller said, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Sometimes this is called the hospice model or the stealth model of formation or of ministry development. We must continue to love the people in our presence. If the people you love and who are in your congregation are content and fed by what you are doing, those resources need to be available for them. But alongside of that, we need to be imaginative and think of new ways of sharing this epic adventure that is so incredibly awesome. One of the best examples I can share with you is from Northern Virginia. St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Arlington, Virginia, shut down Sunday school. For all the reasons that many of you may struggle. They love the idea, they have a good number of young families, but they had really uneven attendance. They had incredible content because they had a really good Christian ed director, part-time, but she's very, very competent. And yet the parents were not getting the kids there, and she couldn't get the volunteers. And the volunteers she could get weren't preparing well. So the caliber, quality, all of that stuff was just complicated. She shut down Sunday school. And she did this, I will say, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a second, but we have a conference that we offer at Virginia Seminary called E-Formation. Some of you have come to it. It's a 3-day conference, June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, where you get to come and learn about how the message of the church, the mission, the gospel has not changed, but the media we need to use to help people access it are new. So we use digital media to help you learn about how to communicate with your congregation, how to do formation. She came to that conference, she said, I'm going to do it differently, I'm going to shut down Sunday school. She now meets every 4 to 6 weeks with intergenerational families on a theme of the season, liturgical season, that's tied to the lessons and the worship services. They have weekly children's chapel every Sunday that's at the beginning of the liturgy of the word of the principal service. Parents and kids come, they get great worship experiences and storytelling on the lessons. They come into church at the peace. But once every 4 to 6 weeks, these families meet and they have a very structured, fellowship-oriented experience of Christian formation. Then they go online. They go to this website. And when they go to that website, you can't read this, but basically what she has is, what is fish? How does it work? What is Sunday fishing? It's when we all meet together for lunch teaching. The Sunday fishing is every 4 to 6 weeks. But every week on that website, she posts family activities for households with children, household activity for people who don't have children, something that's relevant for her people, that's easy to do to follow up on the theme of the season in your home setting. Faith is formed in the home, much more than it's ever formed at church. So here's a way that she's flipped it on its head. She has more people participating, she has more kids engaged in formation than she had in the last 5 years of regular Sunday school classes. Lent Madness, I hope some of you know about that. Another resource that is available to you right now. If you went home and invited people in your congregation to jump into Lent Madness, if you Google Lent Madness, you will come to their website. 2 Episcopal priests have got a whole bunch of people to write very cool bios about saints, real saints, people you may have heard of and people you may never have heard of. Every day, just like the March Madness basketball bracket, you get to vote between 2 saints. Totally random. You just get to decide which of these saints should win. It's your standard for winning. You think she's prettier. You think he's smarter. You don't like, the symbol that's associated with this given saint. This person's from a part of the world you like. You vote for a saint. The winning saint gets the golden halo. It is the most incredible way to learn about the saints of God, learn some church history, and be silly. Highly recommended. Videos for your soul. Google videos for your soul. My friend Randall Curtis saves short, pithy videos all year long, posts one a day on this website during Lent. They are seasonal, they're thematic, they're like 3 to 5 minutes. They're powerful, evocative films. Both of those, Lent Madness and Videos for Your Soul, if you go to the website, you can subscribe. That means they will actually send you a daily email. You can click on it, watch, vote. Easy to do. Tell your grown-ups and your young adults about this. That's formation right there. SSJ, probably my favorite story of content generation. The monks of St. John the Evangelist in Boston, brilliant, faithful men for generations. We're producing all this content. The only people who ever really got it were those who went to the monastery for a retreat, were in spiritual direction with the monks, or were fortunate to have a monk lead their parish retreat. They figured out, we've got this content, we want to give it away. You can go to ssje.org and you can subscribe to Brother Give Us a Word every day in your inbox, in your email. You will get one word with about 2 sentences. Content, love, forgiveness, hope, joy. And one of the brothers will give you a couple pithy sentences about that word. If you want more, you click on it, you'll get a few more paragraphs. But it lands in your box. They call it pillow formation because it comes in your inbox about 5 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time. And you can read it whenever you want during the day. But during Lent, they go to video. So during Lent, you can subscribe to the same program. And their Lenten program this year is called It's Time to Stop, Pray, Work, Play, and Love. You get like a 2-minute video of a monk sitting on a couch telling you generously a little bit about how to think about time differently. Highly recommended. Okay, this is a video that I'm not going to show you all of, but this is just giving you a sense of the Center for the Ministry of Teaching. And then we're going to wrap it up. This is where we are, and this is available to you. Those are my colleagues, Kyle and Dorothy.
So the Center for Ministry for Teaching is about helping people see themselves where they are as teachers of faith, whether that's as a parent, as a person in the workplace, or whether it's a priest or a lay leader who's working in the church and for the church. I find that there's a lot of hope on the margins of our church right now, and the Center for the Ministry of Teaching is a lot about being a curator of those margins. What is it that we see that people are doing that's new and innovative or very traditional?
I love to stand at this desk every day and get phone calls and emails and tweets from people all over the Episcopal Church and occasionally all over the world who see this center as a place to go for assistance, for consultation, for resources, for a person just to listen and respond. Call and ask for anyone on the team.
Kyle's a priest, and he's the first digital
So
missionary.
we've found ways to equip all of us, people of all ages and all types and walks of life, with access to quality resources that are more than not ready on demand and adaptable and flexible enough for their particular questions.
We believe in lifelong faith formation, and that we want to support people that are seeking a deeper relationship with God. How we do that is we can do it so many different ways. We are not wed to just one way.
We're always trying to get people connected to experiment with new ways of being the church and new ways of forming faith. We think that not teaching digital media skills to future church leaders is like not teaching homiletics or pastoral care.
Building Faith is our website that offers faith formation for children, youth, and adults. And people come to Building Faith for traditional resources, such as curriculum reviews, but also for fresh ideas for new ways of doing faith formation.
We want people to know that they're not alone out there. There's a whole community of educators and leaders who all share a common goal, which is to raise up disciples for Jesus Christ.
I'm going to stop it there. That's Matt Kozlowski. I just learned at the first workshop that he's a priest of our church now. Amazing guy. He was raised up by a congregation here in your diocese. So kudos to you. So the Center for the Ministry of Teaching, yes? We are stopping. So this is the main website you can go to at the Center for the Ministry of Teaching, and you can come to us online, by phone, by text, by tweet, however you want to find us. We are here to help you. What I want you to walk out thinking, Christ has died, Christ is risen, and Christ will come again. And that epic adventure is so awesome that we cannot, may not, must not hide it.